being able to generate ideas, you'll find yourself in a completely different world. So if you are not into creativity, I wanted to say that you are missing something big in your life.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Arrow. And as you all know that I am a mechanical engineer, I sing it all the time. But what I actually do is I create things, and I have to be creative. And going through LinkedIn, I just found my guest, Mr. Milind, and I read his book, and this is his book, Ideas on Demand, a crash course. So it is a pretty cute book, but you will get a lot of information through it. And I just started contacting Mr. Milind around 2-3 weeks ago, and we had a lot of conversations. And I asked him to come on this podcast and share some information with us also, because creativity is like required for everyone. It is not just because for jobs or anything. It's, for example, if you are at your house with your wife and you have to shift your furniture, it's also a sort of creativity, but at the end of the day you will get happiness through it. And also there is some satisfaction when you create something by your own. And when I read his book, I was quite amazed, because there are some things which we all know, but you do not get everything concised and closed by in every page. It is like short by short by short, everything is very important. And I was very impressed by his book, and I asked him, please come on my podcast. So Mr. Milind Hardas, welcome to this podcast. Tell my viewers about yourself, introduce yourself, and about this book also.
Yeah. I would like to introduce myself as the creative one. And my latest introduction is all about being the author of the international bestseller, Ideas on Demand. When I say international bestseller, I would say sometime in the June end, I sort of published this book on Amazon. So since then till date, this book is continues to be a bestseller on Amazon marketplace of India, US, UK, Canada, and Australia. Meaning all the places where all English-speaking nations, I would say. Now, talking about this book, in fact, I would say that little bit about myself, that although I started my career in the year 1982, my association with creativity began sometime around 1997. That's a separate story. I would tell about it little later.
Mm-hmm.
But in my corporate career since 97, I had a need and I started learning creativity. Since 2008, I'm on my own. The client comes to me, particularly the pharma companies and few of the non-pharma also. They come for only one reason, which is creativity. So you can say that creativity is the sole source of my livelihood. And so that's about creativity. And this book had been happening in my head, I would say, since 2013. I would write a few things, few pages. I would make note of few points, and then get busy. Something would happen, and then forget about it. I remember 2017. I made a good effort. It was kind of half complete. I put it as a free ebook. So sometime this was the year 2021, I decided that enough is enough, and I'm going to take it to its logical end. So basically, I would say that in this book, it contains two things. One is my learning of creativity since 1997, my experience in the field of creativity since 1997, and the whole thought process had been happening since almost, I would say, last 8 years. So everything is being summarized in this book. And one good thing about it is initially I struggled a lot with creativity. So I know that what it takes for a non-creative person to start from a scratch and to sort of master creativity. So I had given, I would say, almost everything in the book. So if somebody is a complete newbie, a complete beginner, from being a beginner till the becoming a master, it has got everything. Uh, in fact, that this book is based on one firm belief, or I would say the fact that contrary to the popular belief, creativity is not something which is being gifted by God to select few. Every person can become creative because, simply speaking, creativity, like any other skill, requires two things. In here, it is three things, but two things are basically you need the right technique. You need to understand right technique. You need to run your brain in the right particular way. Number one, and like any other skill, like cycling, like swimming, you need to practice a lot. So this book, at the end of every chapter, there are exercises. So
Yeah.
you need to, those exercises are well thought over, well planned. They are based on the content, the topic that has been covered in the book. One has to just keep reading the book, go on solving the exercise. And the third thing which I was talking about, that why people are not able to, find it difficult to learn creativity, is basically there are certain blocks which actually stop them from learning creativity. So unless you kind of remove those blocks,
Mhm.
it's next to impossible to master those techniques. So the initial part of my book is all about those blocks. By reading that book, one becomes aware about those blocks that he or she possesses, and then the technique and the exercises to sort of remove those blocks. So this is in short about me as well as my book.
uh, the best thing which I liked about this book is I always tell people that I ask stupid questions. I love asking stupid questions because they are, first of all, entertaining, but also to explain that stupid question, people tell you a lot of good things. And that's what you have written in that book. And when I read it and I said that, okay, so I was not doing some things wrong. But let's start from the beginning. um, there is one place where you have said that creative people are creative people's mind are wired differently. What do you mean by that? In a sense that you have written in that book, I think it is at the beginning or somewhere at the beginning, that when your executive mind wakes up, your other mind goes to sleep. So what is this phenomenon? What is actually happening?
Uh, there are three kind of uh, mechanisms, I would say, the want of the correct word. One is a kind of a default mechanism that is happening. That's where you think, you daydream, you apply your imagination. So that is one type. The another type is the executive mind that you mentioned, which is very logical. Now, what has been found out by solid research, that at any point of time, uh, one of them is dominant.
Mhm.
One of them is dominant. So that's where actually one is not able to generate creative ideas. So when they studied the creative people, what they found is their ability to simultaneously have both the minds dominant. And what they found is, the further research what they did is there is some way of thinking, they call it as a divergent thinking.
Mm.
So when you do your activities and exercises in a divergent thinking, over a period of time, what they found is both the minds are functioning simultaneously. So you made mention about neuroplasticity. Now, basically, neuroplasticity is the ability of our brain to make new connections, make new neurological connections, and make new structural changes in the brain. So it is known fact that in our childhood, the brain keeps on making new neurological connection, the new structural changes keep on happening. Now, what was believed that as we grow up and we become adult, then ability of the brain to stop making new neurological connection or new structural changes, that comes to a stop. Now, the recent studies in the neuroplasticity. So basically, neuroplasticity is ability to make those changes. The recent study found that even adult brain, in adult brain, the phenomena called neuroplasticity exist. As I said, it requires the right techniques and the practice in the right direction. So that's a good news that as an adult, our brain is not as hard as cement concrete.
Mm. Because
There
I
is,
asked
yeah,
this.
it can be still softened. It can be softened. So that's the thing. Now, and yes, the brain of creative people is wired differently. The way they run their brain is different. Now that is the reason why actually people believe that creative people are different.
Mm.
But while it is true that the brain of creative people is wired differently, it is also true that we can rewire our brain.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Our brain can be softened. And that's where I was talking about removal of those creativity blocks.
Mm. Yeah. One thing it was a bit interesting in your book is that you have divided into 4 or 5 sections, and then that section name is okay, it is agreeable, but then the heading of the next the chapters, it is totally opposite of what you have written, and it is instantly thought provoking that okay, what does he want to say? And then when you explain, then it is said okay, now I understand that it was written inversely. um I know that when we were kids, probably in class 1 or 2, we used to had some coloring books, but in those coloring books, there were like dots on a page from 1 to 2000, sometimes like this, and you have to connect dots and make something out of it. And when I was reading your book, and I think it is the second section or first section where you said connecting the dots, that picture came into my mind before reading your chapters. So my question to you is, how do you recognize the dots before connecting them, that okay, this is the dot?
Yeah. You need two things basically. One is you need lots of dots. You need to collect a lot of dots. I had mentioned somewhere. I just keep on forgetting the names. What is the name of the MD of Virgin Airlines? Richard Branson.
Yeah.
Richard Branson. So his mantra for his employees had been A, B, C, D. So what he meant by A, B, C, D is always be connecting dots, connecting the dots.
Mm.
So what I had written in my book is before you start connecting the dots, you need to ensure that another A, B, C, D is in place. Now that another A, B, C, D is always be collecting the dots. Now, going one step backward, now let us try to understand what are the dots. The dots is something dot doesn't mean one thing. Dot could mean many things. Now, one of the things that dot implies is our past experience. Whatever things that has worked for us, whatever thing that has not worked for us, those are our dots. So one is experience. But not only the experience, even our thoughts also. The thoughts are dots. Not only my thoughts. Maybe we are brainstorming, we are discussing something. You had some idea. It's not end-to-end idea. It's a raw idea. It's a spark. So that I can use it as my dot. The experiences of the others, the past experience of the others are also dots. So everything put together becomes a kind of a dots. So in order to connect those dots, you need to have the lot of dots. In fact, if you recall, I had in my book mentioned that one of the scientists, Edison has one habit of he would record everything, all his experiments, and what he would record, and thousands of things that he had recorded were not the successful experiments. Those were the failed experiments. But it so happened that some of the path-breaking inventions that he was involved, he actually leaned upon those earlier failed experiences or failed experiments. So as I said, that two things I was mentioning, that you require dots, how to connect it. Now that's where actually you need to understand the technique. But I would say what happens, that connecting the dots is something that we all do all the time. But that wow is missing. And why the wow is missing? Because people tend to connect the same set of dots which others connect. They are the obvious ones. And you tend to get same set of run-of-the-mill, or what you call it as a ghisapita ideas, which others get. So the magic lies in connecting completely unconnected, connecting completely unrelated dots.
Yeah.
And once you connect it, and then you get a wow. And then the other people think that, oh, why the hell I didn't connect them? Why the hell I missed out those dots? So basically, I think we will come to that. Maybe it's, I had mentioned that it calls for changing your frame. As long as you keep yourself in the singular frame, you'll keep on connecting the same set of dots you had been connecting and others had been connecting. The biggest challenge is to, discover new frames.
Yeah.
Which are not visible to you, which are not visible to others also. You mentioned about your childhood book where you had been connecting the dots. One difference is, in that case, the dots had been visible to you.
Yeah.
Here, first of all, the dots are not visible. The method is first discover new frames. Every frame will have different types of dots.
Absolutely.
So you connect them, and that's where you connect one frame and then connect it from the third frame, and then you connect another dot from the seventh frame, and then suddenly you realize that there is a wow, a big wow.
As I mentioned earlier, that my job is to design new things and all the process for making a product. Most of the times I have observed for myself, and honestly, be it like self-obsessed, but I think that I am a creative person. And the point which I have noticed for myself is that when I start thinking based on the previous, for example, designs or previous experiences, I tend to be like a horse with blinkers. I don't see left and right. But when I get a total out of the box idea, it is a cliche to say that out of the box idea, but I think of it's for myself. I think of it as a stupid idea. And when I think about that stupid idea, and working on it and extrapolating many new ideas out of it, you get one brilliant good idea. So what do you think is dot in this? Is that dot to get that stupid idea somehow, or is that dot the final idea which you are working on?
Those small sparks,
Hmm.
those we call it as a stupid idea, or you call them as a crazy idea. These
Hmm.
are the dots, and they are the ones which are extremely useful. Uh, in fact, we do brainstorming all the time.
Hmm.
When we do ideation, we just get some random ideas, and in isolation, none of the ideas are basically a very powerful idea.
True.
I mean, we know that if we go to the client with these ideas, client is going to be disappointed. But we keep recording them. We just keep on putting them on a whiteboard. We kind of create different bubbles. Uh, Somehow, some of them are mediocre. Some of them are they don't make any sense. And but we know because of our experience that at some stage things will start getting connected. So basically, I would say those stupid idea, I call them as crazy ideas. Hmm? That's a very important raw material. Those are like those are like raw diamonds. They appear like stone. They appear like coal, hmm? and we tend to throw them out of the window. I mean, these are the ones which actually needs to be taken. They needs to be polished. They needs to be cut. They needs to be combined. Uh, Say in the corporate world, I hear many often people complain very bitterly that yeah, I'm creative, yeah, I would like to be creative, but whatever you are talking to me, why don't you go and talk with my bosses? They are the ones actually they kill my ideas.
Mhm.
My response to them is, before your bosses or before the management kills your idea, there is someone else who kills your idea, and someone else is you.
Exactly.
See, basically, what happens? Uh, See, one thing about ideas, when the ideas, initial ideas, they are pretty ugly looking. You you actually feel very apologetic about those ideas. You may even hate them,
Yeah.
and your impulse is to throw them. So basically, we tend to be quite harsh with ourselves in judging our initial ideas. Those initial ideas, those needs to be nurtured. Those needs to be preserved. And those
Mhm.
ideas, on their own, as I mentioned, are not powerful. They need to be connected with some other ideas. So I think why you are able to get some out of the box idea is because of those crazy ideas that you are thinking.
Hmm.
I mean, something different, and somewhere it's getting connected. And I'm quite sure that every crazy idea doesn't connect with other, but few of them, the some of them, they get connected, and that's what we need.
Hmm. Yeah. It's like finding needle in a haystack, but if you don't have a haystack, you probably never find a needle also. It's like that. Um, I have another thing which I read in the book, which made me a little bit sort of confused, or I wanted to talk to you about it. And you said in the book that assumptions are like walls for us. I mean, they are a roadblocker for our creative mind and creative ideas. And assumptions, what we think as facts are not facts, they are actually assumptions. You have something along this line. So can you explain this to me?
Uh, See, basically, this is how our mind functions.
Hmm.
Uh, to operate in this world, you need to make assumptions. And most of the times, your assumptions help you to move forward in our, day-to-day life. But over a period of time, what happens? Uh, Assumptions become reality. So we are into a situation. You want to kind of think something out of the box, but these assumptions, they serve as a wall. They serve as a wall, and we say that no, this has to be done. This has to be done. This has to be done. This cannot be changed. This cannot be changed. These are the realities. Now, talking about business world or corporate world, every industry has its own set of realities. And you say, ki, nahi, in this industry, this is how things have to be done.
Yeah.
So sometimes what happens, if you are looking at a breakthrough innovation, then the method for looking at a breakthrough innovation or even some kind of a invention, uh, you have to examine each of the so-called reality.
Mm.
You have to sort of challenge that reality. Maybe out of 10 realities, you may not be able to challenge, you may not be able to change with, let us say, 8 of them.
Right.
But in the case of 1 or 2, you might actually discover that what you thought to be realities are actually assumptions. You kind of, you need not have to follow those rules. You can actually break those rules.
Yeah. I think that you gave an example. I am not giving the exact example, but a car has not to be mechanic with pistons and rotating engine. It is now like Tesla. It has a motor and that's it. Done.
Yeah.
Then you have
Yeah.
the fastest car or fastest
Yeah.
accelerating car.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you have given many examples in your book, and yeah, they are thought-provoking examples. When you gave this example about the corporate world, that many things are being done in the past and you have to start at least from this base and then you have to build upon that. Do you know how to, just because you gave an example of corporate world, how to communicate this with your bosses or managers or leaders or people who have more experience than you? How to communicate this?
Are you asking that how to kind of sell your creative ideas to the top management? So communicate what exactly you are asking?
Okay, yeah, that is very close to what I'm asking. But the only difference is that I have to persuade my boss to not use the previous idea, something like that. That
Yeah.
please break your shackles, or I just want the boss or the manager to have a more open mind than what he has or she has currently.
So there are a few things that you could try. One thing is, in the starting itself, you tell your boss that whatever has been happening in past, let us just throw it out of the window. Let us try to think of completely new. Your chances of convincing him are little less. What you may have to do is, you may have to work up to a certain extent. Give your idea some shape, make it more attractive, make it more compelling, and then kind of present it to the top management or your bosses, and then you say, okay, these are the possibility, this is how I have worked. So rather than telling about the concept that can we kind of break some assumptions which our industry is following, then he may ask that, okay, which are the assumptions you may want to break, but no, you can't break these assumptions, this is how it has to be done. This is one way of doing it. Another thing is, if you recall in my book, while we are talking on assumption, I had given one technique. I had given a couple of things to sort of, have sort of a breakthrough innovation by breaking through the assumptions. One technique that I had given is reversal technique. Reversal technique is, first of all, you list down all the realities that are happening in your situation, in your industry, in your setup. These are the realities which cannot be changed.
Mhm.
That's of step number one. And just for the sake of exercise, just for the sake of exercise, uh, you can actually invite your bosses and your peers that can we just do exercise called reversal? Can we just write down the opposite of it?
Right.
So you say that opposite of it true, this is true, this is true, this is true. So you have written 10 realities earlier. Now you have got a new set of 10 reality, which is absolutely opposite of what is believed in your setup or in your industry. Then the next step is, if the opposite statement that has to be written, if we have to make it true, then what it takes, what is that we need to do to make it happen? And then you ask ourselves, okay, then you list down, okay, suppose we do this, is it possible to actually break it completely? Again, you may not be able to do it, 10 out of 10 cases. You might actually, but for a powerful innovation or invention to happen, you don't have to change all the realities. If you change even one, that is good enough. So that's one thing. Another thing I had mentioned in the subsequent chapter was, I had given one very, very powerful tool, which I would say ultimate tool, which actually help you to change the frame, which is asking questions.
Yeah, for that, read the book. I mean, you don't get everything here, so you have to get details
Yeah.
from the book.
Yeah. So, and I had tried to explain, I had given with example in the book. So how, by asking, different type of questions, uh, it would help you to change the frame. So basically, as we discussed some time back, the name of the game is to change the frame.
Right.
Because some of the different dots, unconnected dots, they lie in a different frame which are not visible to us. So how do we make those frames visible, which are currently invisible? The answer is by asking questions. If I to explain you a little bit, the frame on which you are going to stay or you are going to move, it depends upon the question that you are going to ask.
Right.
The question that you ask, it determines the frame in which you are going to land. Again, the same problem is that we tend to ask same set of questions. So we all land in the same frame. So the first thing is change your question and change your frame. So again, if I'm talking about invention or innovation, particularly if you want to have a game-changing innovation, you need to change the frame. So to summarize, the game changer innovators, what they do, they ask frame changing questions. So if I have to take the essence, the frame changers are the game changers. And question is the technique, to be the frame changer.
When you told me that, not told me, but when I read in the book that ask questions, and I think in the first or second page of that chapter, every answer after that you have written answer is question, another question, another question. And I just want to add personal anecdote. I don't have make a new frame of questions, but I don't know, since childhood I have a tendency or a habit to ask why. Everything why. I mean, I have gotten in trouble for asking why to many times from my teachers. When my teachers ask me, go, I get out of the class, and I ask why, so I got slap on my face, across my face. But yeah, I have a tendency of asking why, why is it like this and why is it not like this? So you are absolutely right. But when you are working, for example, in a corporate world, and why is not always the question, like you said, that another reference point, another frame you have to create by those questions. Do you think that asking questions from yourself is more productive than asking questions from the team?
Uh, See, I would say, okay, before that, I will just take a step back.
Mhm.
I think I found it very interesting when you spoke something about yourself. In fact, if you recall, in the preface, the first line of my book, I made a statement. I'm saying that we all are born creative.
Yeah.
And then I said that then we went to school.
Yes, correct.
And there is a very interesting stat which I had given in the book, Ideas on Demand. The stat is there are two things that was measured simultaneously. I don't have the number ready to kind of rattle right now, but the numbers that were given is that number of questions that child asks in a day. Something that they found that, if I remember correctly, is a child who is less than 4 years of age would ask something like 364 questions in a day.
Mhm.
And as the child grows, the number of questions that has been asked, it drops considerably.
Right.
And parallel, there had been a research where they found that they actually use some scientific tool to measure the creativity. At a young age, as a child, the child are the ones which are most creative, most imaginative. And there was one research that was carried out where actually they tracked a set of children from their right from their early childhood till their adulthood, till the time they go into the corporate world. And they found that something like, I don't remember at the age of 18 or 22 or something, the creativity, which was something like to the tune of 90 plus as a child, has dropped down to 2%. And same thing had happened, the number of questions that has been asked. So basically, as we go in the school, first of all, the child who is less than 4, you ask a question, and parent would say, so sweet, so innocent. And as you grow up, then you start listening, don't ask stupid questions, don't talk like a child, talk like a grown-up person. So first is the influence, the society means your parents and your relatives and your surrounding, they start saying that, don't ask stupid questions once you grow certain age. Then you go to school. The school, our education system is something that doesn't reward questions. It reward answers.
Right.
And there also a big flaw is it rewards so-called right answer.
Well,
The right answer is the answer which is given in your textbook. The right answer is the answer which is in the mind of your teacher.
that's deep.
The teacher which is expecting the answer, you give the same answer, then you are appreciated, then you are rewarded. So the students try to figure out that which is the answer my teacher is expecting. We are now multiple, what is that called, MCQs. MCQs is you have been given 4 choice, A, B, C, D. So there is a convention that out of A, B, C, D, 1 is right. If 1 is right, which means what? The remaining 3 are wrong. So as a result of that, as I mentioned in the book, we have become the right answer society. And when you talk of creative people are different. For them, it's not just one answer. It's in their mind, there is no one right. In their mind, there are many rights. So that is what I am talking about. You need to sort of rewire your brain. The very fact that you need to accept the fact that there can be more than one right existing, which is helping us because of this one right syndrome, our client gets stuck and they come to us and we do brainstorming. As I said, that we start with a lot of mediocre ideas, but we still pursue, and then we get one wow idea. And we say, this is the idea. And then what do? We park that idea. And we say that, okay, let us try to get another wow idea. Sometimes the idea that what we get are wow idea, but completely opposite. But we don't say that this is right idea, so therefore this is wrong idea. So basically, we continue where our clients stop. And that is the reason actually clients come to us. Okay, now coming back to your question that whether what's the right thing? Should we ask a question to ourselves or should we ask question to the others?
Yeah.
My answer is little different. My answer is first and foremost, we should actually develop a habit of asking questions.
Yeah, that
is more important.
Yeah.
And I would say which one is right? My answer is both are right.
No, right. Not about right, but which is more effective.
Okay.
The point was that when I ask myself question, and if I ask that same question twice or thrice or multiple times for that matter, the question changes by itself because you also polish the question. And
absolutely,
when you ask the question directly to others, it's normally not so polished. It's a crude question. And sometimes it is not taken so seriously, So what is the perfect way to ask questions to yourself and the others?
See, when you are asking question to yourself, what you are actually doing is you are kind of rewiring your brain. Initially, you have to do it as a conscious exercise. Over a period of time, you will find that it becomes your default mechanism.
Yeah.
You don't have to really articulate the questions. You may have to do it initially. But our neural pathway is so fast that you ask a question and you are saying and you are changing questions that happen in seconds, basically, even before you kind of realize it, right? Now, about asking questions in a group, I had mentioned basically that it is inevitable. As a part of creativity, it's inevitable that asking questions is inevitable. If you don't ask questions, then there is a problem. That is the reason I said that the reluctance on our part to ask questions is one of the creativity blocks. See, what happens is, therefore, I talked about stupid question. What I meant, it is not that all the time your question has to be stupid. What I meant was slightly different. Our fear that my fear is that my question would be labeled as a stupid question.
True.
People may kind of laugh at my question. And therefore, I don't ask questions. That becomes a creativity block. In fact, talking in a group, I would say that if we are having a kind of sort of a brainstorming discussion, then it is okay to ask questions. We say that, okay, we are brainstorming, so let us ask questions. I would ask some very intelligent questions. I would ask not so intelligent questions. I would ask something which are questions which would appear as a downright stupid. But I'm going to do that. And I would suggest that let us all do that. Maybe some of the questions which may sound as a stupid ones may actually trigger some ideation process. So we have to do both. Yeah, in some cases, I'm saying that your environment is not conducive. So, like, you start perfecting the art of asking questions. Right. There also, you start perfecting the art of asking questions in a group. And once you start developing creativity, it shows. Very soon you will get labeled as an idea person. So when you ask questions, people would take them seriously. It's, that question sounds stupid, but I think Varun is asking them. So I think let me take that question very seriously, because there may be something So, like, I just give two examples.
Mhm.
The famous theory of relativity of Einstein, it all began when Einstein asked, the most stupidest kind of a sounding question, a childlike question. And he kind of latched to it and he followed it and he sort of imagined that, okay, if that is the case, then what will happen, that is what will happen and what will happen.
Mhm.
That is how the theory of relativity was born. So that is one part of your question, that, that's where he asked question to himself. Now I'll give another example. The earlier one of the famous, the management and leadership guru called Peter Drucker. Peter Drucker has, stated very explicitly that when he interacts with a client, he doesn't try to present himself as a knowledgeable person.
Mhm.
He says that I do only one thing. I ask lots of questions, and some of them are stupid.
Mhm.
So he never thought that by asking stupid questions, what will happen to my reputation? Am I putting my reputation at stake? He didn't. He was not worried. Okay, I just tell you one thing, that this is something that we experience almost every day. When we are interacting with our client, client is giving us a brief. It's a new brand, it's a new molecule, it's a new kind of a mode of action. It's not that we know the entire spectrum of disease. It's not that we know the entire spectrum of the molecule. There are a few things we know, there are a lot of things we don't know. So when the briefing is being given, we ask questions. And sometimes we ask questions at the risk of even sounding stupid. But we still ask, because we realize that in this area we need to develop some thick skin. He may momentarily think that, "Yaar, what kind of a question these guys are asking? I thought they are they are very creative, they are very knowledgeable, and ऐसे सवाल पूछ रहे हैं करके." But we still ask, because we know one thing, we have learned one thing: to sound stupid at the time of asking questions is the lesser evil than sounding stupid when you are presenting your idea.
Yeah.
And that time to realize that you have got it wrong. You have got it wrong because you assume few things. You did not ask some questions. So the entire entire campaign that you built was built on something which was not right. So that time you would look really, really, really stupid. So it's better to look stupid at the time of asking the questions. Yeah.
Right. I was reading your book. It was like Mumbai Pune Express Highway, very smooth. I was reading it very fast. And right around 3/4 of the book, there is a chapter. It's called Break. It's something that when you have constraints, then your creativity is increased. Something like that. I don't know the exact heading of the chapter.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, I thought that creativity has no bounds. It should not have any constraints. It has to fly anywhere possible. And by personal experience, I have seen whenever my boss said that do whatever you want to do, this you have to make this, do however you want to do it. And in those times, I made some beautiful things or some very easy mechanisms or something like that. But when I read that chapter heading, I was literally came to a halt. That why is he saying that? I know now why we were saying that, but I want you to explain to my viewers also that why do you think that constraints can boost your creativity? Yeah, boost your creativity through constraints.
Yeah, absolutely. See, I'll tell you one thing that many people believe that see, all in our business life, we have a constraint of time. We have so many variables we have to handle. The world is not very ideal. That you are being given a time which is free of absolute interruptions, no phone calls, nothing. Suppose if I tell you, okay, yaar, let us go to Khandala, let us book some resort for next 3 days. We have a group of people, we will not bother you. Let us do some ideation, only ideation, only ideation. People may think that this is the best way to come out with the best of ideas. Budget is not a constraint. You can have 1 crore, you can have 100 crore, you can have 1000 crore. But in reality, you are more confused. So I'll just go one by one. This is a very important thing. And I think if people understand this one thing, it can make a big difference to the creativity. There are different types of constraints. I would say one by one. I would say time constraint. See, my personal experience is best of my ideas. I get best of my ideas not at 11th hour. I get best of my ideas at 12th hour.
I see.
So when you have a very little time, I was talking about the time constraint, right? Yeah. So I'm yet to come across any client who gives us a brief and tells us, यार आराम से करो, take your own time, लेकिन अच्छा idea लेके आओ. What they want is they want world-class idea.
And yesterday,
absolutely. So sometimes and that pressure actually gets best out of us. Even I would say that as I mentioned to you some time back that I started thinking about this book. I started writing this book from the year 2013 and I finally wrote it in the year 2021. One of the reasons is I joined some group, I joined some community, and I was doing it with my own pace. And they had some kind of an activity called Publithon. Now we were kind of a group of 80-90 people, and we were divided into the group of 10. And each group will compete with other groups in terms of number of books were published and so many other variables and all. So and there was a prize. Now, more than anything else, I realized that my group is quite excited. And the last thing that I wanted to do is to let my group down. And there was some there was a window of 45 days. So that 45 days, I would say, the best of the ideas that are there in the books, the best of the thoughts had come, that has happened in those 45 days. And out of that 45 days, I would say last 15 days. And out of last 15 days, I would say that last 5 days were the most creative ones. So that is the kind of, that's a magic that time constraint can actually make. So all our ideas, they happen in the time. So we are experiencing day in and day out. Another thing is the budget. The budget is, I would say that for any marketeer, if you have got an infinite budget, then I don't think that you really need to be creative. As your budget comes down, then this is what you cannot do, this is what you cannot do, this is what you cannot do, your budget is minimum. Now, the only thing that you can do actually is the creative ideas.
Yeah.
And there had been a lot of instances where client came and say that we are launching the new product, we are launching it during the last quarter of the year. अभी बहुत क्रिएटिव करना है, बहुत ऐसे करना है, धमाका करना है, ये करना है, वो करना है, लेकिन एक छोटा सा प्रॉब्लम है. क्या प्रॉब्लम है? प्रॉब्लम ये है कि साल का बजट खत्म हो गया. Then साल का बजट खत्म हो गया, then why are you launching the product at the last quarter of the year? I say, look, this had been a very bad year for us. Now, when we launch this product, there at least some billing would happen and it will add to some of our primary business, and at least we will close our year at a respectable figure. So, क्या कर सकते? Then I told him that no problem. We don't need inputs, we don't need gifts, we don't need to do so many things. What we need is a piece of paper. उतना तो कर सकते हैं, कागज तो है. Then we say that we'll put best of our creativity on the piece of paper. And I think that was a launch. I remember that was the most memorable launch. I still, when I look back, that we launched sometime in the year 2011, and I feel very proud about the launch because of there were absolutely no resources. So this is one example that when you have the resource constraint, in my book, I had given one example of one guy. He goes to the airport late night and he realizes that the flight has been postponed.
Hmm.
And he decides to stay put in the airport. क्या करना है मतलब? And that airport is completely empty. Now he gets an idea that I think how about shooting a video? And he shoots a video. He was the only person. There is no one to hold a camera for him. And so what he has only one idea. So one famous song, he kind of lip syncs he lip syncs with that song, and he does so many things. Actually, the way he looked at it, he said that, okay, there is nobody, there is not even a single soul. A non-creative person would look at it as a big barrier. The creative person looks at it differently. He's saying that the entire airport is my studio.
Right.
And he actually makes, and that kind of, I don't remember that initially he uploaded that video on Vimeo.
Hmm.
And when I was writing the book, that something like, some 7, 8, 9 million views had happened. It kind of became a rage.
Hmm.
Some of the top print publications, they called him for an interview. That constraint, and within that constraint, the very fact that he shot that video, that made him famous. Overnight, kind of, it gave him a celebrity status. So this is as far as the constraint of the resources. Now I'll tell you another thing which I had mentioned is one of the famous authors called Earl Hemingway. He was having a drink with his friends, and they kind of enter into the argument, and this author, he sort of made a very audacious claim. He said that I can write a very emotional, I can communicate an emotional story in 6 words. And the other group kind of challenged him that you can never do it. And he said that how about betting some dollars, and they put dollars on the table. He took out his pen, he took out the paper napkin, and he wrote 6 words, 6 very powerful words. I may not be able to remember them exactly, but it was something like for sale, for sale, baby socks, never worn. So in 6 words, he communicated a very tragic story. So in fact, it's very common. You might recall, if somebody gives you a mic and asks you to talk on a subject and tell your story and make it a point, and they say there is no time constraint, you can go on talking. It is easy to talk for hours and hours and hours. But suppose somebody tells you, okay, you have to communicate your story in, let us say, 45 seconds, 30 seconds. You have 30 seconds and you have to communicate about your story. You have to make a pitch. You have to tell about your business. You have to get approval, and you have the 30 seconds. Now, this is a situation that would force you to bring your creative best out of you. So this is as far as the constraint of time, constraint of words. See, we are into the field of advertising. So advertising is very important, and you have a lot to say, but other person doesn't have a time. So your message needs to be creative, beautiful, and extremely sharp. How can you communicate your message very effectively in few words? So that happened. That is where the copywriting comes. Copywriting has become a completely a profession by itself. So if you are going to write essay, it's easy to write the essays, but nobody has the time to read the essays. It's all about writing creative headlines, the attention grabbing. So that's where you need to be creative. Uh, even I would say that I had mentioned at some point of time, the Google had started some initiative. They call it as a moonshot. Hmm? Moonshot, the name itself is that you are aiming for the moon. And the CEO of that initiative, I don't remember his name. He had made some statement. I don't remember it verbatim, but it was quite counterintuitive. He's saying that at times 10x is easier than 10%. Now, here we are talking about completely different constraint. Now you are talking about constraint of getting 10x results, breakthrough results. Now, what he meant basically is, if the expectation is just to grow by 10%, do 10% better, then it is easy. Then you don't have to be creative. Then whatever you are doing, do it more, do it better. 20% growth, yeah, you can still do it. Do it more, do it better. 30, 40, 50, you still can do it by doing it more and better. But somebody tells you to get 10x results, then this more and better thing won't work.
Right.
Then you have to do something which is lateral, something completely radically different. And that's a constraint of expectation, the constraint of those audacious goals that forces you to bring your creative.
Yeah,
So-
it is said, someone said it, bigger problems have better solutions, something like that.
Absolutely.
And what you said, obviously, I came to know when I read that chapter, but it was, what should I say, out of the box idea for becoming creative. Or
Yeah.
I can talk to you about your book very long time, every chapter, but I will pick up this last topic, which I want to understand from you personally. There is a technique in the book. It is like pick random words. Yeah. For joining the dots, pick random words. Can you explain it in a little bit? Not very deep. People should read the book. Otherwise, they will not get the whole idea what is this about. But
Yeah.
a brief information about that.
Okay. See, basically, I will just come back to the fundamental. The fundamental of getting wow idea is connecting one dot from the existing frame and connecting it with the new dots, completely unrelated dots from a different frame. The challenge, as I had mentioned, is how do I change the frame? How do I change the frames that are invisible to me? One of the technique that I had mentioned is by asking question. Change your question and suddenly your answer falls into a new frame.
Right.
That is one technique, right? Now, to address the same challenge, there is another way of doing it, is a random word. Random word is basically, logically, you may make same connections. So you are still like, you are like a snake who is caught inside a glass container, who keeps on moving inside that container. So when you pick up the random word, that random word has no connection. In fact, I had suggested a couple of things. You can do it either way. There are some, you can do a Google and ask for random word. There is a small software also come that it will pop up. You want one random word, you want two random words, three random words, there is a Google for it. Another technique which I had mentioned is very conventional. You pick up any book, open a random page, put some finger somewhere and look at that word. So basically you have got a challenge in hand. You are trying to crack that challenge. Now the word that you have picked up is the answer to your challenge. Now that word is completely unrelated. Now that's the beauty of that word. Because it is unrelated, it is going to take you into a different frame. If you recall, I had kind of mentioned some challenge which was a typical corporate challenge, which people face day in and day out. And to write the book, I literally followed this method. I chose the method number 2 of picking the random word from the book. And I picked up some book. I opened some page, and the word that I came across was bicycle. Now I said that by using bicycle, how do I create more frames? So I just went on doing, okay, what does bicycle tells me? Now that bicycle tells me maybe speed. So through that random words, I created more related words basically. So one of the word was speed. Now bicycle has got many parts. Bicycle as a machine, it becomes synchronization of those parts, right? So one word I picked up is coordination. That also you have to do it randomly. There is no kind of a mathematics. And okay, bicycle, what comes to your mind? Okay, the bell. The bell is like alarm. So the word which I said, which I took out was basically the early warning system, the checks and measures. So like that, I had picked up some of the words that came to my mind, which were the words that were related with bicycle. Maybe one of the word is you are going into some direction, so it's a direction. So direction is another word. I don't remember. I just wrote down the words that came to my mind at that point of time.
Yeah.
And then I started connecting. I started connecting my challenge with those words. In the process, if I remember correctly in that book, from one frame, I created some 13 frames. Each frame can have a different set of dots. So in each of the frame, I just show that, okay, now your frame is ready, then you can have the dots into it. And then I came out with the final solution by connecting some one frame, another frame, this and that. So this is a completely new solution. So from where it came, I had a problem, I had a book, random page, random word, and you have the solution. Which by thinking logically, by staying in the same frame, you would have never come out of. You would have never thought of those solutions. Basically.
Absolutely. You know why I asked you actually this particular topic? And again, I'm talking about myself here, but when I was kid, maybe 10, 12 years old, and my brother is around 4, 5 years younger than me. And we used to sleep in the separate bedroom on the same bed. And we weren't able to sleep because we were kids. We were hyperactive at that time. I wish I am now, but we were hyperactive then. And he used to ask me, because he was younger than me, to ask me to tell stories. I don't know any stories. Then I used to ask him, tell me first word, I will start a story. And in between, he tells me now, for example, I'm just giving an example that, okay, now he went to America. And then I have to divert that story to that he goes to America, then I create another story. And when I read this particular thought process, that random word, actually, I was doing it when I was a kid. Again, randomly, it was not a planned thing or something, but randomly was happening. So it was quite amazing that probably that's why I feel that I am a creative person, because at that time, by chance, it was happening. And I think it is a great process. And I think there is a improv comedy nowadays which does something like that. But at that time, we just have DD1. That's it. So we didn't know anything about it.
Correct.
Last thing before we close this podcast, I want to tell you something and ask your opinion about it. See, my head of the department in my previous company, I showed him 3 or 4 mechanisms. For me, it were quite beautiful, and they work perfectly and everything. When I showed him, when he came to the office and I showed him, he said that, okay, it is perfect, but there are so many problems in this. And be as it may, I told him that I can solve this problem this way, this problem this way, this problem this way. Then he said something to me which has stuck to me till now. I mean, it was 7-8 years ago. I don't remember anything else he said, but this he said that never fell in love with your own ideas.
Yeah.
Drop it immediately if you think it is somewhere holding you back. Never fell in love. What is your opinion about this particular statement?
I mean, I just love this statement in the sense, I had mentioned somewhere, I don't remember again, it's verbatim. You know, the biggest problem is I have a great idea, and that's the only idea. So as I said, that's where actually we get clients. That's why clients pay us, and that's thing that what we do. We keep on reminding ourselves that this is an exciting idea, but never marry with that idea. So it's kind of we have raised the bar to such a level that when we are going back and presenting to the client, we don't have only one idea to present. We have got at least 4 or 5 different routes to present. And we always try to see that all these routes are ek se badkar ek. So we always put client into a problem, the problem of plenty, which one to select, because everything looks very attractive. So the word that your boss used was never fall in love with an idea. The word that we, in our lingo, the word which we use is never to get married to one single idea. Basically, that is where actually I would say that the root of that problem lies in one right answer syndrome. And that's where actually collective brainstorming also happens. Sometimes I get an idea, I'm excited, I thought, "Arey, maza aa gaya karke," but then I look at the faces of the others. I see that they are not looking very impressed. Chalo, theek hai, one person didn't like it, second person didn't like it, but 3 or 4 people, none of them, they like it. Then I had to accept that maybe what I thought to be exciting is not really that exciting idea. And it helps. It helps actually to raise the bar. It helps to come out with even better idea. When you fall in love with one idea, you are actually closing the door for many better ideas.
Right. I mean, before he told me, I think when he told me that sentence, I had around 4 or 5 years of experience or something like that. And I used to always, not marry, I used to produce 4 generations with that idea. So when he told me that particular thing changed my mindset and changed my whole life, at least at work, it changed my whole life. And then when I go to brainstorming sessions now, I first remember that line. Okay, this is here. Never fall in love with your own ideas. Now I go to brainstorming sessions. And when the idea which you are showing, and when multiple people build on it, and now from Taj Mahal it becomes Burj Khalifa, it's awesome. And it is a very good feeling. So I just wanted to tell you that.
See, in fact, we started about connecting the dots.
In
brainstorming, I had a great idea. That's what I believe. But you have a great idea. Third idea, those are the dots, and when you connect, you find something which is really out of the world.
Absolutely. I love this book a lot. Some of things we all know. It is not that we don't know, but it is like this. Hindi में कहावत है कि हीरे की कीमत जौहरी ही जानता है, something like that. And when you read this book, you will understand the deep impact of particular idea which you already have, but you don't know how important that idea, and how important to polish that idea, how important to use that idea in your day-to-day life in everything. I gave an example at the start that even if you are setting up your living room with your wife, it's a creative thing. But if you use all these steps, you will see that a beautiful thing will come out. And Milind, I love your book and I love talking to you. And it was an amazing conversation. I hope you liked it also. And before we close this podcast, do you have anything to tell my viewers and me? And then we will close this podcast.
No, just you talked about Johri. What I wanted to say that thankfully there are plenty of Johris there out there. So that is the reason I got some 50+ reviews on my book. And it continues to be the bestseller even till date. So that means people are reading and people are actually, appreciating it. I just wanted to say that once being able to generate ideas, you'll find yourself in a completely different world. So if you are not into creativity, I wanted to say that you are missing something big in your life. That's the only thing. I think that's it.
And so lastly, I want to say one point, that it is responsibility of every human being as species to be creative, because we are only one who have this ability to be creative.
Yeah.
And if we are not creative, there is nothing evolving us to
Absolutely.
better technologies, better life, and better health, everything. So as Milind said, that be creative in anything. It brings a lot of happiness within you. I mean, a sense of accomplishment is like morning coffee. I can say that. It's better than, but for me, morning coffee is very important. So with that, please guys, like, share, and subscribe this channel. And I will put the link of the book down in the descriptions. Please read this, and you will have a very good basic idea. It's like what it's in the name of the book, a crash course. It's a crash course. Do that crash course and try to be creative. And with that, thank you, Milind, once again for coming on this podcast, and adios. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye. Thanks for calling me. And it has always been a pleasure, to discuss on creativity with someone who appreciates creativity, and also with someone who actually have taken the trouble of going through the entire book.
It's not a trouble at all.
The pleasure is actually manifold. Yeah.
Right.
Thanks and bye.
Bye.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.